What's up out there? Quick follow-up for my Behemoth Cyclone build in Legacy of Frisia. I have been running a lot of low-level content. I ran so much low-level content that I was basically ready to level up. I had about 50-60% of a level, so I finished it off. I've leveled up one level. We'll get into where I put that point here in a second. And I've upgraded some of my gear. What I've been focused on is in this idol here, I get 25% more unique items found from Beyond Demons in your maps that are followers of Gore. In this idol, Beyond Demons in your maps have a 40% increased chance to be followers of Gore. I've got a lot of unique items that I'm looking for, so I've been running a ton of this. There's also Harvest and Delirium, and I can't remember what else in there. But this idol package that I've been running, scouting reports, for a ton of different things. So first and foremost, I have three unique maps that I'm looking for on the Atlas tree. We've got the Twilight Temple and the Putrid Cloister, which I just need those to finish this up. But the big one that I want is the Coward's Trial, because that will give me the prefixes cannot be changed so that I can finish the craft on this axe that I've had forever, because all the suffixes are useless. I have no mana and I can't do crits. So all the suffixes are pretty much useless on this axe and I need to re-roll them. What I want to do is go over to harvest crafting and re-roll them with a speed mod and try to get this with increased attack speed and things like that. But I need to lock prefixes in order to do that. So I need unique maps. I'm also interested in the Nagamu's flame axe or whatever. I don't know that it's going to be a better axe, but it's got some projectiles it can throw off. I'm curious to see how that plays, so I want to unlock that axe. There's at least two different armors that I'm looking for. I really want the bronze lithe so that I can get the +5 movement skills and damage and everything that brings. I don't know how that's going to mess up my gear or mess everything up, because that's pure evasion, where this is pure armor. So I don't know that maybe I don't want that. I don't know. I'd always be welcome for like a brass dome or something like that. Maybe I just stick with the armor I got. I'm not sure, but I'm looking for those uniques. And let's see, I was farming a lot of Abyss, trying to get some more of this stuff here, but I can't get the Abyssal Depth dropped. I went in there and died once while I was trying to level up to get this last level. And I died once and I'm like, I'm tired of losing XP. So I just safely moved on. But when I did get my chance for the Abyssal Depth, it was while I was leveling up, which you can see I'm starting to level up again for the next level. I think I'm going to keep playing it safe and going into that. But I've been doing a lot of Delirium, Beyond, Harvest, trying to get Harvest Juice and do crafting and stuff like that. Been working on all that, kind of got burned out on it, and I'm just kind of at a point where I want to take another break again. So it's the weekend, and I'm kind of slowly coming back and forth into this game and playing some other games, just trying to level up a little bit, trying to find some stuff, that kind of thing. Running a lot of cage maps so that I can try to get a 6-link, which I did get a 6-link. It's right there. I finally got enough chains that bind to give me one. And as you would expect, it is energy shield and completely useless to me, so I can't even use it, even though it's a 6-link. Let's see here. I did drop this Abyssus. This came along at some point, and this adds 40 to 60 fizz damage to attacks. Multiple or melee critical strike multiplier I can't use, and then it's got 48% increased fizz damage. To work this thing in, I would have to cough this up, which gives up life, fire res, lightning res, that kind of thing, and a bunch of armor. So, well, I get most of the armor back, but this also takes my damage from 92,000 tooltip DPS over to 107,000. So it adds a lot of damage. If I can figure out how to work this thing into my build, that adds a lot of damage, and I'm interested to try it, but not right yet. I'm still trying to get everything else set up. So on the gear side of things, I did get my implicits all done. I started working, doing a bunch of Exarch stuff and not so much Eater stuff. But after the 10 ways done and the Exarch's done, I was bouncing back and forth between those a little bit here and there, or Exarch and non-Exarch, I suppose. So I've got enough implicit currency to get what I think are decent things. On this helmet, we've got increased attack damage. We've also got the Exarch implicit is fizz damage taken recouped as life. On the chest piece, we've got increased armor and damage taken recouped his life. And then we've got increased life regen and movement speed on the boots. So I think those implicits are really good. Those actually apply. They're not just random minion crap or something that, you know, cold or something that doesn't apply. So they're actually stuff that applies to my skill. They might be something, some of these might be changed out for something different, like maybe we could get attack speed or something like that. But I'm pretty happy with where those are, so I'm going to leave them for now. I also worked up my jewels. I spent some time. I did not know the harvest, the horticrafting station, there's certain things you can't craft on it. And I don't think I knew that you could craft searching eye jewels. I think you could craft these on there, or abyss jewels. So I ended up working on this here, this murderous eye jewel. So I've got adds fizz damage, increased attack speed, life. It's got added fire damage with axe attacks, which sounds good, but because I'm running brutality and I can't deal any elemental damage, that one's kind of useless. But I've at least got better stats on it than what I had. I don't remember what I had on here, but this has more pertinent things to my build. And the same thing with this one. I was trying to get this one changed to something better. I've got regen or life regen and chaos res with added cold to bow attacks is pointless. I will try to get a different one rolled for something else, but I do like having the extra chaos res in here. And the life regen doesn't hurt either. I swapped out the amulet over here and added an anoint to it. I don't remember what I had here before. I was trying to get one that did life, but apparently there's no amulets that do life. There's regen, there's attributes and things like that, but not life. So long story short, I ended up going to get this. I chose this dexterity one because I'm very short on dex. One of the big problems with these boots is I couldn't take them off without bricking the rest of my gear, because this thing's got 48 dex. So now that I've got this here, this amulet with a bunch of dex on it, it's got dex, life, lightning res, and I was able to put increased melee damage and melee strike range, so I get my AoE just slightly bigger and a little bit more damage out of it. I also allocated martial experience on here. What I really need to allocate is brutal skewering. This bumps up the damage quite a bit, but the second choice that I had was to anoint martial experience. Martial experience being the second most DPS that I could get and being the one that I had enough oils to get. So I don't remember what oils the other one takes, but it's like golden and stuff like that. Like I had no chance of getting it right now. And I wanted to anoint something on here to get some increased damage. So I anointed martial experience, which is a node that I had and then had to drop for some other changes. So I've swapped out the amulet, and then I did not realize, so if I go into my curse rings, I was running this curse enemies with vulnerability on hit. This is a fire resistance ring. This comes from Delve. And apparently, I thought curse on hit rings could only be pulled out of Delve. I did not realize you could actually craft them. And I saw somebody talking about using, an influence. This is a warlord influence chaos resistance ring that I rolled it through with harvest crafting to get the curse enemies with vulnerability on hit. It also came with some fire res, so I was able to replace the other ring that I had. Mana I don't care about. The dex is nice to have, but then I was also able to craft increased damage on here. So I did not think about using influenced gear here. Most of the time when I think about using influenced gear, it's going to be a helmet, a chest piece, or gloves, or boots, or something like that. And I would rather have the implicits in nearly every case than whatever the influence. I keep thinking implicit. Whatever the influence has to offer. I did not think about getting influenced versions of the jewelry, which you can't apply implicits on it anyway, so I don't care. So I might be looking for another version of this over here, see what else is there. I know the Warlord gives you the curse with vulnerability, but I might see what other influence offers, and same thing for the amulets. That's actually a good choice, and that's something I'm gonna have to keep in mind down the road for other builds in the future, because that'll allow me to get the influence and potentially some better modifiers, or modifiers that I can actually craft onto it. So I thought that was really cool. And I think that about rounds us out. Oh, and I think in the last video, I still had the whatever other flask I had. I swapped it's the one that gives you damage. I think gives you, what's it called? It's not terribly important, but while I'm looking at it. Sulfur? Yeah. Creates consecrated ground and it gives you 40% increased damage. So I ended up swapping this thing out for this granite flask so I could get a lot more armor. I think this is better. So I ended up putting that on here. And I think that's about the limit of the gear changes that I've made. So let's look at the passive tree. You will notice that I now have a cluster jewel. And I've gotten this question in the past and people have asked me why I don't use a lot of cluster jewels. And oh, this is where it came in. The harvest crafting came into this. Okay. So I don't typically use a lot of cluster jewels, hardly ever, because once I get my passive tree set, I find it very hard to swap out of what nodes I've picked in the passive tree to go into something over here in the cluster setup. I never can quite get the cluster jewels to roll anything good or anything comparable to what I've already selected over here. And like in this case, I was over here to Hatchet Master and I was up to Martial Experience. So I had these 3 points here, and I think there was like 7 or so points down to this. I ended up pulling all this stuff off and putting it into here, and my damage did go up a little bit by going into this and removing out of these other nodes here. So that's kind of rare. I don't normally get that kind of performance out of it. Usually it's going to be a big trade-off for things that don't work typically in my favor. So I don't usually like using cluster jewels all that much. We get increased damage here. The cluster jewel gives me 12% increased fizz damage for every node that I take into it. We also get increased attack and cast speed with physical skills. We get Furious Assault and Iron Breaker as well. Now, I don't remember who I was watching or if I was reading something, but somebody mentioned that you can actually put cluster jewels. Oh, I was reading it in, I think it was on Reddit somewhere. I was looking something up. You can actually put cluster jewels in the Hoarder crafting station and roll it until you get these things like Iron Breaker and Furious Assault and stuff like that. Typically, the way I would have handled it before was to go into Transmute, make it magic, and then use Alteration until I got what I wanted, regal it up, and then maybe do some Exalts or something on it. This worked out fantastic. I burned up a whole bunch of Harvest Juice on it, but I've got Furious Assault, which increases attack increases attack speed, 25% increased fizz damage. I've also got Iron Breaker to get a 50% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction and 30% increased physical damage. So that kind of replaces this up here, which had 30% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction. Now I've got 50 and gives me 30. The damage that I get out of this node here is kind of offset over into here with these two. And I'm able to get increased attack speed and fizz damage with each of these other nodes. I'm also able to socket in these medium jewels, which gives me damage over time multiplier, which I don't think applies all that much. Increased attack speed does, and chaos res is nice to have. And then this one's got increased melee damage, attack speed with axes, and stun and block recovery. So not that I take stun damage because I've got this thing over here, but it's nice to have at least the increased melee damage and attack speed. I did lose the Onslaught on kill, but I think I've still got Onslaught on kill somewhere else up in here. I don't remember where it's at, but I still get Onslaught, I'm pretty sure. But at any rate, those changes actually made sense and make my damage go up. I think I'm doing 400 and something thousand DPS. I think it's like 420,000 DPS with this setup at 0 Rampage. At 1,000 Rampage, I'm getting 480,000. So we're starting to finally get up, pushing up the DPS. If I can get the craft on this axe, if I can find that and get that done, that'll push the damage up a little bit further, and it'll open up the ability to get maybe a better axe. This is an item level 80 axe. If I could find an 83 or something like that, which I've got some, I think, if I go in here. Yeah, I've got an 82, an 81. I'd like to get an item level 83 axe, maybe an 85. I need to see where the cutoff points are on Craft of Exile, but I need to see where I can roll some of this stuff. This axe here, actually, with 134% increased fizz damage, that was actually something from a Jun mission that I was doing, or the Syndicate stuff. I actually got that, and it was a drop. I just happened to roll it and get this. It offered the 134% damage, and I was like, all right, we're taking that. So this came from a Syndicate run. We could also try and do something with Rog. See if I can get anything on him, but you know, I got to do a lot more expedition. But at any rate, I've made a ton of changes to the build. Just trying to min-max everything and fill it all out. I'm feeling a lot better about the passive tree with this stuff. The passive tree where I was with Martial Experience and Hatchet Master was fine. Going into this setup over here with these cluster jewels and everything, we could always come off of this and rob some points somewhere else if I can find some other good stuff to put into it. But I'm pretty pleased with where everything is. My damage went down maybe slightly, but some of my defenses went up. I now have positive chaos res, and if I use this thing, we're getting pretty decent chaos res. So my resistances are good. My armor's decent. Like it's things are working out fairly well. I just need to keep grinding on harvest juice, trying to get these uniques, trying to get the scouting reports and get, you know, I've got plenty of missions over here with Kirok. I can't get the stuff that I need. It's all the stuff that I've already ran. So at any rate, and we're starting to work on level 94, which my 93rd point went in over here. I had this open. I didn't have enough points to put into it. For anything beyond this, I don't know. I guess I would probably come up here, try to go back into Martial Experience again, maybe. Actually, what I should do is come down here to Brutal Skewering and put my next points into that. So if I was to go, what are we at, 93, 94, 95, 96. If I could get to 97, I could have that, and that'd be great. That's a lot of leveling to do, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to get all of that done. Still need the craft, still need all the other uniques that I'm looking for, etc., etc. There's a lot of just straight grind to do. I'd like to get the Eater done. If I can get the Eater done with this build, that's all the Atlas Stones that I ever get. I don't know that I could do even attempt a Maven fight on this. That's a lot of grind to get into. But at any rate, oh, and I need to do Nameless Seer runs to try to get that off of Tier 16 maps, but I want to get the Eater done so I don't waste all my Tier 16 maps first. Anyway, lot to do, but the build is going fairly well. I think I'm starting to understand how to transition over. I should probably go into some Maven fights, destructive play and stuff like that, try to get Awakened Gems, see what I can do with that, but I don't know. That is where we are currently and still just grinding along. Probably need to take the day off and then go back and hit it hard for the rest of the week. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.